For me, CPD is a fundamental part of being a registered professional, and it's something that should be seen very much as part of what we do every day, not just as an add-on that we maybe try to do half a day a month. I think it's vital for people, for all of us, to understand that it's an expectation of us as registered practitioners, and also from their professional body point of view, that it plays a significant role in our code of ethics and code of conduct, and also professional standards.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's what makes us a professional. It's a core skill. It's something we have to do. Because if you think about why, we've got to continue to develop our skills so people who use our services can trust us, and that we can remain competent, and that it strengthens not just our own reputation as an individual, but gives the profession some integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd echo that. As the regulator, of course, it's a statutory requirement, so it's a legal requirement that you undertake CPD as part of maintaining your registration, and it has been since our standards were introduced in 2006. So I suppose beyond that, though, of course, we hope people aren't doing it just because they have to. It's about, as you say, from a professional's point of view, making a commitment to keeping your knowledge and skills up to date. But for us as a regulator, I suppose, where we'd see it fitting in is as being part of actually maintaining your fitness to practice. So, of course, you see the fitness to practice process where we'll investigate if something goes wrong, but actually this, in a way, I guess, you could see as a sort of preventative measure, because if people are keeping their knowledge and skills up to date, they're engaged and excited and motivated about their profession, then those kind of individuals are going to be less likely to get into difficulty.
Yeah. But I guess it's broader than that as well, because we're focusing on the regulated professionals, but then CPD is also for everyone. It's for the for support workers and for non-regulated members of our profession.
And you set out expectations for those?
Yes, because the code of conduct covers
all OT personnel, so students, qualified occupational therapists and support workers, etc. So
we're all bound to doing CPD. I think on a practical level, CPD has to cover a range of areas. So when we think about the 4 pillars of practice, it's not just about our professional practice skills. We need to think about our learning needs in relation to leadership, in relation to supporting learning, and also our skills with evidence and research and development. So I think on a practical level, if you're thinking about what CPD do I need to do, I think you need to think about it in terms of those 4 pillars. I think sometimes there's a tendency that we just focus on the professional practice skills to do the day-to-day practice-based job.
I think as well it can be as diverse as occupational therapy itself and your occupational therapy practice, and it's not just about the work necessarily you do with clients or specific service users. It's about the learning, the experiences you've had, how you reflect upon maybe a piece of work you've done or a presentation or an interaction with a client or a colleague, or a piece of learning, something you've seen on social media, something something you've read. It's all about making that part of what we do, part of our everyday learning.
And very individual to you as a professional, of course, as well. So what you do, what your role is, of course, will determine what your CPD looks like. So it'll be different for everyone. And as you've hinted, OTs are doing incredibly, diverse range of sort of activities and getting involved in very different client groups and pieces of work. So I think that's one of the reasons why we would argue at HCPC that our outcomes-based approach is so useful, because it's not prescriptive about what you do. It's actually about what the outcomes are. So that as the benefits for you as a professional, but also the benefits for your service users, whoever they are. So that outcomes-based approach, I think, supports that approach, which is very self-directed. As you suggested, it's about people identifying for themselves. Well, what do I need to keep my knowledge and skills up to date?
And I think you're right. It's this idea of multiple service users. So if you work in NHS or social care or private practice or wherever, and your service users might be your clients and their families, but equally if you work in education, your service users may be your students. And for us at the professional body, it's our members and the broader professions. So I do find myself having to remind myself when I think, what am I going to do for my own CPD? that actually my service users throughout my career have changed depending where I've worked.
Yeah, and you could have multiple sets of service users
Yes.
as well. You know, maybe you are doing some work with clients or patients, but also, you know, perhaps you're a manager and therefore managing staff. So from our point of view, we define service users actually that broadly.
Yes.
So if you're a manager, the people you're managing are service users. And as you say, in academia, most of your service users will be students, but perhaps not all. You know, you could have a mixed picture.
Yeah, because if you're doing research and your research participants are from a broader area, they're your service users as well.
So the way we tend to talk about it is anyone who's touched in any way by your professional practice, really, they're your service users.
But I think underpinning it all in terms of what it looks like, I think reflection is key. I like your idea, you know, CPD isn't something that's just separate and it's something out there. I think it's a way of thinking. Yes. CPD is a way of thinking and it's really important that we reflect on what we've learned, we think about the changes we need to make from that learning, and then also the impact that's going to have from an output-based situation.
And also we know as individuals about our professional competence, what our skills are, what we need to improve upon, and only we can judge that. I mean, it's important to get feedback from others, from, you know, supervisors, managers, service user, colleagues, etc. But only you know yourself as an individual registered professional what you need to do and what you want to do to enhance your skills.
So thinking about those 4 pillars of practice helps, but like you say, that gives you the structure. But it's got to be you reflecting on your own abilities and where you want to take your own career next. Yes. So it really is an individual thing in that sense, isn't it? Yeah. In terms of who benefits from CPD, I'd say everyone, everybody. I think of primary importance, it's got to benefit those who use your service. Otherwise, I don't think you can class it as CPD.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for us as the regulator, we're sort of quite explicit on this. So we talk about 2 sort of groups having to benefit, both the professionals themselves and service users. So we're sort of quite clear. Standards 3 and 4 set that out. So when you're choosing activities, we ask you to seek to ensure that you're undertaking activities which benefit the service user and benefit yourself as a professional, whether that's related to your current practice or future practice, because of course it's got that developmental quality, hasn't it? So and service users are, you know, incredibly broad as well. So service users, whoever they might be for you in your working situation, those 2 groups I think for us.
And picking up on your point there about the range of activities, what I like about the HCP website, when you click on that list of the different types of activities that constitute CPD, and the fact that it can be things that you learn in the workplace. There's work-based learning. It is formal courses, it can be, but then I like the idea that it can be a whole range of activities, so maybe something you're doing outside of work. So I took on the role of being a school governor because I identified I needed more strategic experience to support my career. And that's something I do outside of work, but it benefits my own continuing professional development.
I mean, fantastic example. The only thing, you know, we would say is that we just expect that there's some link to your own sort of professional knowledge and skills, or you know, and that absolutely is, because you can talk about, as you say, you know, working strategically. So must link things that are outside of your working life, which we'd classify as sort of other, you know, in terms of the 5 different types of activity, you know, must have some sort of relationship. But if you're able to demonstrate, you know, how they're supporting you as a professional, then yeah, fantastic. And I think it's worth making that point again. Not all about going on courses, not all about, you know, those things which can be more time consuming and more expensive. You know, it's all the different types of learning. In fact, our standards explicitly say that you must undertake a mixture. So if you did, you know, only one type of learning, in fact, you would struggle to meet our standards. So it is about that mixture.
And often it's the informal learning, isn't it? And it's the social learning. And I know I've had a discussion with a number of other professional bodies outside of health and social care around the use of social media. So, for example, Twitter debates and their value in terms of providing a forum where you can come together and share and learn. And then as long as you reflect on what you've learned and change your practice and show how it's beneficial, I think the medium in which you learn is you know, it can be broad, can't it?
Absolutely. The feedback from the assessors is that people are, you know, undertaking a, you know, fantastic range of activities and breadth and depth in terms of CPD. So I don't think from the point of view of the regulator we have a concern that, you know, that CPD isn't actually making a real difference.
What sort of calls do you get around this though?
It's usually the focus upon maybe not how many hours do we have to do. And I said obviously we don't have to do a stipulated number of hours. That people don't have time to do CPD. That because it states in the standards that we should have about 1 afternoon a month to do this, and people say that they're unable to have that at work, so therefore they can't do their CPD. So it's unpicking that, say, about our own responsibilities to do it kind of when we can within our own time, and that just the acknowledgement that it's continuous. So you could be on the train on the way home, reading Twitter, reading the news, reading something online, going onto our website. So it's just trying to make it part of what we do every day, reflecting upon it, a piece of learning, something you've had in the day, an experience, meeting with a service user, supervision you had that day, anything, making it part of what we're doing all the time, because we're doing it constantly. It's just acknowledging that, and it does have an impact on what we're doing. It's just being able to stop and reflect upon that and acknowledge it.
So it's making the space to articulate the impact of what we're already doing, whereas sometimes we don't necessarily realise we're doing it. I think when it comes to impact, for me, there's three components we need to remember. We've got to remember that we are learning, like you say, capture those moments when they happen, and just appreciate that we are learning from. It might be something informal, or it might be that we're reading an article from the journal, and then so we've got to capture what we've learned. We've got to then be able to articulate the changes we're going to make into our practice, but then also something around then saying, well, how that's benefited the people who use the services. I think there's those three elements when it comes to impact, and we need to tick all of those off.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Hopefully that's why people are doing CPD, in order to make a difference, and they're in that way demonstrating that they have that commitment to continually developing.
Yeah. And I think we make an impact as well when it's not just an add-on. Like we said, it's not all about the HCPC audit. It's not all about just keeping a dusty file somewhere on a shelf. It's all about living it and making it part of what we do.
And it's a challenge though, isn't it? Because in the busy realities of everyone's work, whatever setting, work is so busy. Sometimes it's just trying to grab those moments to actually appreciate some learning has happened and to try and capture it. And it's not easy, but at the same time, if you make it a way of thinking, it just becomes second nature.
Yeah. Some of it's learning through doing, isn't it? Yes. Reflective practice, all of those kind of things, which, as you say, you're already doing actually. You don't always realise it, but
things like responding to a consultation, or the work that you might do for a specialist section, or some voluntary work. That's all.
Chairing a meeting.
Chairing meetings, maybe hosting a journal club session, or it's all that.
Yeah, as long as there's that developmental quality, then it's absolutely part of your CPD. Absolutely.
But it's about being creative in how you do it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I would say not to worry, and that you're doing it anyway. It's just being able just to take a step back, reflect upon what you're doing, being able to evidence it, and have the confidence to think about your role, the scope of occupational therapy, the scope of your role, and you don't have to be in the job title occupational therapy, as long as you're practicing your occupational therapy skills to maintain your registration. Have that confidence to acknowledge that and to act upon that, and to reflect upon what you are doing as an individual, and how your CPD can help to improve your own practice and for your service users as well.
Yeah, I think that's the important point, isn't it? It's remembering why we're doing it in the first place. It is all about to maintain the best possible quality of service we can, give the people who use our services, and give them confidence and trust, and that we're fit to practice. For me though, I think a top tip would be separate out the learning you have to do from the folder you have to fill in. That the two, yes, they're related, but actually we have to keep learning, and we would have to do that anyway, even if we weren't audited, to maintain our professional skills, to maintain our competence. So separate out those two components, and so it's not, like you say, just all about the audit and the portfolio.
And also that it's a fundamental part of our code of ethics and also our professional standards. So even if it wasn't a registration element to it, it's still a fundamental part of what we should do and what we do.
And part of what makes us a professional.
Yes,
exactly. Mine was going to be very similar actually. I was going to say, even though you might expect me, from the regulator to focus on the audit, actually, I was going to say, don't focus on it, you know, don't get so hung up on the audit, because although we do have this audit every 2 years, you know, we know that causes people a lot of anxiety still. We know people don't want to see that letter landing on their doorstep, but actually, you know, as we've sort of hinted at, you know, CPD is a really important part of being a professional, and it's not all about, you know, doing things just in case you're audited or worrying about it. And if you are selected for audit, there's lots of information and support available, and hopefully, you know, putting together that profile, if you're selected for HCPC audit, you know, we hope wouldn't be too onerous, and you could draw upon things that you've already got, and where you've already recorded things. So yeah, that would be my tip, is that, you know, focus on why you're doing CPD, which is about, you know, maintaining that kind of enthusiasm and you know, excitement about your profession, keeping up to date with what's new, being engaged, but you know, don't worry about the audit, and just cross that bridge if you have to when you come to it. Yeah.
Saying that, one of our members wrote a fabulous piece in OT News about her experiences of being audited twice.
Right.
And she actually really valued it. She saw it as a CPD activity in itself. Yeah. She saw it as a really good opportunity to just reflect on how far she developed in that time. And she wrote a really lovely piece that sort of demystified it all in some ways.
We hear that too, actually, that people say that they really, believe it or not, they actually enjoy the experience because they find it does give them that opportunity to pause and to reflect. And actually, when you look back on the last 2 years of your professional practice, people are surprised by how much they have done by way of CPD. And taking that time out to sort of take a step back and look at it actually can be sort of quite affirming, I think.
Yeah.